I'm really excited to talk about project and product management. Before I get into my presentation, I wanted to quickly shout out to Dr. Joshi, the principal, Varunakshi ma'am, and the entire CSI team for organizing this webinar and giving me the opportunity to share some of my knowledge here today. So a little bit background on why I chose this topic. It's really because I wish I had the exposure to these careers when I was studying at Pillars. I understand this is not a part of your curriculum, so you may not have heard of it. And so I thought it would be interesting for you guys to learn about it a little bit. It is seen as a non-technical role, but having an engineering background is actually a big advantage for both product and project management careers. But just wanted to also cover a little bit about my company that I work at today. It's a very interesting company called Agolo. We are a startup company based in Manhattan, New York, and we specialize in NLP, which is natural language processing, which is a branch of artificial intelligence that helps machine understand human language. So our product is summarization. We can automatically create summaries of documents as a product offering at a machine scale. We are actually the only company in the world that does automated summarization as a product offering. So we are definitely in a special niche here, and our investors are Microsoft and Google. If you're interested in learning more of our technology, I'm happy to answer any questions during the Q&A after my presentation. Just a quick recap on kind of different kind of roles that I've had over the years. So I started my career actually in India in a startup, but in the US, I started with The Street, which is a financial media company based in Wall Street, where I was an engineer doing web development. And then I went on to working at Disney as in a project manager role. And my last gig before Agolo was at Intercontinental Exchange, which is, you might know it as the parent company of New York Stock Exchange. And as Krishna touched on, alumnus of Pillais, graduated in 2013 and was also a part of CSI. And then I went on to pursue my master's at Syracuse University. So these are the subtopics that I'm going to cover here today. I encourage everyone to submit questions into the chat as I go through the presentation so that Krishna and team can forward me those questions during the Q&A. All right, so before we get into the management aspects, we need to understand the core terminologies with themselves. Like, what is a project and what is a product? Actually, give me a second. There is a slow lag here. I'm going to turn off my video to get more bandwidth. Okay. So what is a product? Product is basically a thing that addresses a market need. So it can be a physical product. So for example, a water bottle company, it's a physical product. It could be a software. So Microsoft Office is a software, that's a product, and it could be a service as well, an online service that you make use of. And every product has three main phases. It goes through development, and then there's a growth phase, which is the biggest percentage of the whole life cycle. And then there is a retirement, which is not a great thing to have for a company, but that does happen. And then project, it's a one-time endeavor that is aimed at building the product itself. So it has the main difference between a product and a project is the timeline. So project has a definite start date and a definite end date, and with a defined outcome as well. And this is led by the project manager, the definitions for it. And as you can see here on the screen, there are 5 stages for project. So what is a product manager? So product managers drive the development of products and otherwise for the customer. What that means is they have the supreme responsibility of figuring out what the product should be. And they do this by talking to customers and understanding the market needs. and researching. The, I hate this definition that you find on the internet. If you look up product management, a lot of definitions will explain it as, oh, well, product managers are the CEO of the product, which is 100% inaccurate. It's a very teamwork-driven role. It is a leadership role, like Krishna said, but it's not kind of a dictatorship where they say is the last thing. So they focus on collaboration, working cross-functionally across the organizations by partnering with sales, engineering team, and other teams as well, design team, bringing them together towards a shared vision so they can work on their own. So that they're more like a conductor, a music conductor. And then project managers, they are more tactical. So they, like I said, they are focused on developing the product itself. So they have the responsibility of planning for the project, the procurement of resources, and execution of it. And they're usually found within engineering departments, but there are other industries and verticals that they also work in. All right, so let's understand a little bit more of what a product manager does. So they have two main responsibilities. One, as you see on the left, is building the right product. And they do this by 5 things. They will look at analytics from the users, also researching the market, understanding the trends and where the market is heading. And then talking to users, understanding their pain points, of what they actually want to make a product work for them. And then prioritization, this is also dependent on the feedback from users. The more data they have, the better they can prioritize. And constantly looking for opportunities as well to build the right product and new products as well. And on the flip side, it's also making sure the product is built in the right way. And this is where most of the collaboration part of the role comes in. So product managers work closely with engineering and project manager for the engineering aspects of building the product, and they help validate the need and the product by doing a lot of testing, which in the industry is called user acceptance testing, and then making sure we have the right technology, that we are heading in the right direction and not choosing a technology that is not dependable in the future. And they also work very closely with the design team. Because I don't know if you guys have heard of the term UX. It's basically user experience of any product. It's the first impression when you start using the product, how intuitive it is, how easy, how user-friendly it is. Everything, all of that I just said comes into design, the UX aspect of it. So product manager is what actually lead that effort as well, to direct the UX for the product, making sure it's easy to use. And they also have a say in process, making sure that things are carried out in the right manner. It's one of the stakeholders for any project. Let me know if I'm going too fast, speaking too fast, Krishna. I'm happy to slow it down.
No, sir.
Okay, great. Project managers similarly has 2 main responsibilities, but they're focused more on delivering. Well, I should say that they have the same responsibilities. So delivering the right, but instead of building it, they deliver it by actually implementing it cross-functionally. Let's go through the 5 things on the left side here as well. So task management, it's obvious. Resources, making sure they have the right technology resources as well as human resources to work on the project. They work closely with the product manager to make sure they understand the requirements so that they can align the entire team to working towards the same goal. Have totally take care of the schedule. As I said, it has a definite start date as well as a definite end date. So the whole scheduling, including the milestones and the expected outcomes and so on. A very big part of project manager, it's a very important skill, is to identify and assess risks. So risk management is definitely a skill you need to have as a project manager. And making sure you're delivering the product right is done by iterative processes. So making sure you're getting feedback from stakeholders iteratively at every specific intervals, and then reporting the progress to stakeholders so that they have visibility of what's going on. And then definitely they also work with the QA team to make sure the product being built and delivered is of quality. And as I said, they have milestones, making sure there's check-ins on milestones every at specific intervals in the project, and figuring out the costs, requirements, and ensuring they're not going under budget or over budget. So this. Hopefully, this gives a good sense of what the roles are, and I'll also talk about how these roles are similar or where they overlap. So these four things are where product and project managers work very closely together. And this is the reason if you are into project management, it's easier to get into product because you already have some of the core skills and experiences to be able to handle some of the responsibilities here. Let's take a pause here before I jump into my other section. If you have any questions on this section, please submit them into the chat box. All right. Second, I'll go into why you should pursue and what is a good time to start preparing for it. What are the kind of experience you need to have to be able to make that switch? So I'll get into the career trajectory and also the future scope of both the careers. And I really apologize for this slide. I know there's a lot of information on here. I'll walk you through it so you're not lost. So we'll go with the best parts of both the roles first. So the best part of being a product manager, and these are all from my experiences, is first is it's never boring, just 100% the cases with whoever I talk to from PM. Because you're working on different things. One day you're working on design, the other day you're working on road mapping stuff, maybe the third day you will be working with the executive team for strategy and so on. So it's never boring. You get to work on a lot of different things, and there's a lot of creativeness involved in the role. So it's definitely a fun job to have. And it's also highly respected within companies because everyone looks towards product managers to build the right product. And it's a great job. It's a great position to be in to build relationships as well, because you're not only cross-functionally internally across various departments, they're also external facing. So you're talking to customers, so you're building relationships internally as well as externally, which is a great position to be in any professional role. And the other great thing about being a product manager is once you go through the life cycles of 3 or 4 products that you manage, you actually start understanding the entire business and how the industry works. It's really helpful to get that knowledge and those skills and experience to be able to climb the corporate ladder quickly. So a lot of CEOs of software companies actually were product managers. So one example I can give is Elon Musk, sorry, not Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos of Amazon was actually a product manager before he became the CEO. And you can see that across various industries as well. The great part of being a project manager is delivering business value, because nothing is more important than that, right? Because they are the execution team. Ideas, knowing what to build is one thing, but executing them, it's a very hard job. So project managers are also very highly respected within companies because they're constantly delivering value. And they're also in a position to build relationships. It's more internal facing, but it really depends on the industry. For civil engineering and mechanical, it's a lot more external facing as well. And the hard part about being a product manager is this is why product management is a hard role to get, because you are responsible for the loss or the failure of the product, but you are not you're not given credit if it's successful. So you kind of assume all the responsibility, but you do not have control or have enough credit over the product. It's a very interesting role, and the one of the side effects is that it's not easy to understand. So my parents actually still don't get what I do. So a lot of your family and friends will not understand what a product manager is unless they are also a technical or a product person. Um, and it also requires a lot of soft skills um, to work with different kinds of people from sales to engineering team and making sure everyone's on the same page and influencing them to work towards the same vision that you have. So that's definitely a huge pull on the soft skills, as well as having all the technical skills you require to being a good product manager. It's a really good role to be in because, like I said, you get experience with a lot of things. And project manager, the hard parts are like with any project, it's everything has a deadline, so that definitely adds a pressure. And and to be able to identify the end date of a project, you need to be very good at estimation. So there's a lot of guesswork involved, and the more experience you get executing projects, the better you get at estimation as well. And being a professional cat herder, this is actually a term that PMI uses, which is the Project Management Institute. They call project managers as a professional cat herders. Basically means that imagine yourself herding cats, and cats are animals that never listen to. They don't listen to anyone. It's very hard to get them in control, and that's kind of an analogy that they use. Is you're trying to work with different kinds of people and making sure everyone's on the same page and having this shared vision, just like how a product manager does as well. And one of the most important responsibilities of a project manager is to manage stakeholders. And what that means is, for those of you who are not aware, what's a stakeholder? Stakeholder is usually the leadership team in the company who make decisions of where the product should go and how the business should be carrying itself out. So they have a say in every project, and depending on the project, different people are involved as stakeholders. So for a 6-month project, a CEO probably wouldn't be involved. A product manager would be a stakeholder, including some other people in the organization. So managing stakeholders is a difficult thing because they may change requirements in the middle of a product, and they might have a different vision midway. So your job as a project manager is to make sure even the stakeholders have the same vision and that they do not change a lot of the requirements. And this is all taken care of mainly in the planning phase before even the work starts. And then here are the core skills in the last column here. A lot of these are overlapping, so I'll just go through the differences. So with the project manager, as I said, a lot of planning is involved, and time and risk management is also something very important for them. A lot of the work is delegated. So once you plan things out, you start delegating tasks to team members. So you should definitely be able to delegate and know whom to delegate tasks to. And then the rest of the skills here are overlapping with product management as well. The only differences with product managers, they definitely are more involved with the customer needs and the industry trends involved. And emotional intelligence is a little bit higher requirement for product because you're surfacing externally as well as internally. So that's definitely a good thing to be able to influence. Like I said, there's not a lot of control that comes with the product role. So it's really difficult to sometimes align everyone. So it definitely takes a lot of emotional intelligence and empathy to be able to influence people. Relationship management, that's self-explanatory. Highly adaptable. That's one of the top skills I would say you require for a product manager. A good example of a good product manager is Steve Jobs. He was basically a product manager for Apple. A bad example of a good example of a bad product manager would be BlackBerry. So they did not adapt well when market was asking for something else. So you should be able to always listen to the customer and pivot your product to something that they would want to use. So hopefully that explains, and that was a lot of information to digest. Feel free to take a screenshot or for your reference when you want to ask questions on this for the Q&A. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Also wanted to give you a sense of how a typical org chart looks like in an organization. You might already be aware of this, but I wanted to point out to where do the project manager sits and the product manager sits in an organization. And this is a very, very simplified version of an org chart. And this is more for a product-based company, like I highlight here. A services-based company will have a totally different org chart, and their product managers might not have the same responsibilities as a product-based product manager would have in a company. So I just want to give you a sense of the product manager usually sits in a different category for softwares. For other industries, they may sit within marketing departments. It's really different on a case-by-case basis. And project managers typically sit within engineering, and they delegate a lot of the work to team leads and managers. And engineers are obviously who actually write the code to build the product. If it's a software, if it's something else, they would. If it's construction, it's something, the responsibilities would be different. So as an engineer, you can imagine yourself starting out at this level, and then you can go on to become team lead, or you can work on some skills and get some certifications or do some courses. Be able to make a jump to product owner, which I haven't shown here, but I'll also get into that. So you can also make the jump to project or be a product as well, depending on the company size you're in, depending on the kind of responsibilities you have had, and so on, which I'll get into shortly. So future scope for both of these careers, we are almost midway. I have 2 more sections that will finish this. So product management is actually new, especially in India. There's been a slow growth, but consistent growth for sure. It's more commonly, this is a role that has been established very well outside of India and UK and US especially. But as I said, I'll get into some numbers here for India specifically. It grew from 36,000 in 2015 to 68,000 in this year. And there's been the core of the growth has consistently been going up, and there's definitely a new demand for strategic role in the IT companies. You wouldn't find product manager roles in services companies like Accenture, Infosys, and so on, which are very services focused. So any consulting companies typically don't hire product because they usually have 30 or 40 years of experience people doing that job for them at the strategic level. But a product-based companies, you can definitely explore that, and they would probably have entry-level product management roles that they can explore once you have some experience in engineering. So product-based companies could be Uber, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, etc. It's just quick examples of that. Project, this actually is a role that's very established worldwide. And so there are a lot of organizations tracking the labor statistics involved with the growth of this role. So estimation is 88 million worldwide by 2027, specifically geographically in India, to require 70 lakh project managers in the next 10 years. So these 2 roles are definitely both growing in India, and PMI is definitely a good resource to track the numbers on project management if you're interested. So with that, I end this section, and I'll go into, I also wanted to touch on the little bit of differences involved, the benefits and the challenges that come with the company size as well as geography. Just give me a pause, I'll just grab some water. Okay. Again, the same skeleton. This is more for a startup, like I showed before. So just for comparison basis, I also have a large company skeleton here, which looks entirely different. As you can see, there was only one product manager here and one project manager. Now you have directors in a big company, and then the product manager report to them. Then you also have product owners, which I was referring to before, and technical product managers. These are the kind of entry-level roles that you can target if you want to get into product managers. It's not necessary. I've always seen people jump directly to product management, depending on their experience here on this side. Sales, actually, if some of you, I heard out from the commerce and non-engineering backgrounds, you guys can also definitely, sales engineers is a good position to be in to be able to make the jump to either project or product management as well. So as you can see, it's more diluted kind of. You have multiple product managers and now working on the same company, but on different aspects of the same product. It could be different products or it could be different aspects of the same product. And similarly, as when you grow, you have more projects, so you need more project managers as well. And they could be two different verticals within engineering, or it could be one depending on the size of the company. Okay, so a quick example of how a startup environment would look with just one product and one project manager. So on the left here are kind of the features that you have validated from the market, and product manager definitely knows these are the things we need to work on. So they would hand it off to project manager, and they would create one project that captures all of these, or maybe multiple projects like I showed here. It depends on really the requirement, right? As you can see, it has a timeline. So this is the start date, this is mid-June, and the end date would be first week of August here, and so on. So this is how a typical collaboration looks between the two. And as the company grows, as I pointed out before, you might have multiple product managers which work on specific areas. So for example, this is for a ride-sharing app like Uber and Lyft and so on. So one product manager might be focused on the ride-sharing experience, and the other could be focused on the in-app experience. So it could be payment options, could be loyalty program, and so on. So that's the way typically when a company grows, they would have multiple product managers handling different aspects of the product so that they can focus in and make sure they can improve the product. Because otherwise the vision is lost with just one product manager if the company is growing. And similarly, you can have more project managers and they can work on different things, right? Okay, so that was a quick section there. Happy to answer any questions you may have. Again, a reminder, please post your questions in the Q&A. We are almost at the end of my presentation. Some of you requested to cover the tools and certifications required, so I'll be also talking about that. I won't be spending a ton of time on this slide. I just wanted to point out the different areas that are involved with product, and these are the tools that I like a lot. I've used a ton, and these are the ones that I've stuck with. Definitely there are other tools that can work for different situations. These are the ones that I like. I encourage you to explore that further if this is something you're interested in. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Similarly, project tools, as you can see, the titles have changed because the areas of focus have changed for project. So for scheduling, there's a lot of estimation and key performance indicators. There's a lot of task management as well. And some of the things are common here, but are overlapping with product. But as you can imagine, they would use different tools than a product does. Monday is a very good tool to have. It's kind of covers everything you would need in a project management situation. Okay, so certification, very interesting topic. So as a former student, I can say this with confidence that the goal of education is to get a job, right? if you want to get a professional experience once you graduate. So keeping that goal in mind, I have a prioritization framework that is my opinion, and people might dress it differently. But so I would always suggest students to prioritize. I'm not saying it's a replacement for anything else. I'm saying to prioritize real world experience. So anything you can do outside of academics to get to get to be able to manage projects or events, it's a great thing to do because you develop soft skills that you would otherwise want. And it's also an opportunity to put something on the resume that you manage something, and that shows leadership and management experience at an entry level, but that's fine. So definitely encourage students giving it a priority. And also the second priority, obviously, is what everyone knows is you have to get an education. So I think that's self-explanatory. And this is where I actually keep certification. So certification I look at as a tiebreaker. It's a good tiebreaker and a good mental massager, which gives you confidence. So what I mean by tiebreaker is, imagine a situation where you have two candidates as a hiring manager, and they have the same kind of degree and the same kind of marks. So the certification could be something used as a tiebreaker, showing that you have taken the extra step of studying and acquiring a certification. It is largely seen as a theoretical knowledge checklist for hiring managers, but some of the certifications are actually really helpful, which I'll get into in my last slide here after this. So hopefully that paints a picture of what I think about certifications in general. I'll get into the specifics with both project and product. So project, like I said, it has been around for a while. Project Management Institute is the only organization that I would recommend you get certifications from for project. So the entry-level one is called CAPM. This is actually something I studied for and acquired a long time ago. It's a good certification to have, definitely respected in the industry for entry-level jobs. And if you want to be a professional, you can also go for PMP, which is the highest certification level you can get from PMI. It's a very tough exam to pass. It will require at least 4 to 5 months of preparation. It covers everything you would need to be a professional in project management. I think that there are some requirements. I'm not sure if you can do it as a student. I think you need some professional experience of some sort to be able to participate. So definitely I encourage looking into CAPM as an entry, as a step into the door for that. And product management, it's, especially in India, I haven't seen anything that's hands-on yet, but you can definitely explore this course called Software Product Management Specialization by Coursera, which you guys might be aware of already. So there's a specific course with the University of Alberta that I really like the curriculum for. Again, it's very theoretical, but it's something you can do to show your efforts and interest in product management if you wish to. And then there's also something called Product School, which is a great organization that actually focuses on training individuals in product management. It's a lot more hands-on. They are based in the US, but they have they conduct virtual courses that you can participate in. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's definitely worth it because they have instructors from Google and Facebook in the US, which can definitely help you gain more understanding than just doing a theoretical course here, right? So that was it, guys. Hopefully that was educational and inspired a little bit of curiosity in you to look into these topics more. I'm going to send this presentation out to the CSI team so they can forward it to you. And here's my email at the bottom here. You guys can note it down if you like. I'm more than happy to chat outside of today and answer any questions that you may have. Um, so Krishna, if you have any questions from the audience, you can start shooting them at me. It's fine. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. That was indeed a mind-boggling session. The meet is now open for the Q&A session. You can start posting your queries in the chat section. Sir would be addressing them one by one. Kindly be mindful of what you write. The chat has also been recorded for professional purposes. Over to you, sir.
Wait, I see some questions coming in. What are the common points that a project manager keeps in mind to manage any project? That's a good question. So I'll go back to the slide here for reference. Um, 1 second. Right. So common points, okay. Yeah. So requirements is definitely where you start as a project manager, making sure those are defined and you understand them, so that you can align the rest of the team to work on that. And then task management is another thing you want to do. Organize the requirements in a way that it's actionable by your team, because within the technical team there are different things people focus on. So you want to make sure you break it down to their level, and those are done with tools like Jira, like I was showing before. I don't know if that answers the question. If I did not, please clarify your question further so I can help answer that better. But those will be the two things that I would say that they definitely have to keep in mind. I would say everything on this slide, just to be honest, but hopefully that answers your question. So Krishna, let me know if there's a follow-up on that. I'll move on to the second question. Um, is it possible that we're working as some other designation and then change to project manager? Absolutely. Like I said, engineering background is advantage to be able to get into these areas. So if you're an engineer or if you are a salesperson, like I said, you can definitely make the jump. I've seen doctors make jump to IT, so I don't see any reason why you can't do it. um, okay, moving. Hopefully that answers your question. Let me know if there's a follow-up. What is the average salary of product manager and project manager? Um, I would recommend Googling that because I don't have the specifics for India. I'm assuming that's what you're asking for. For the US, it also depends on the region. So California and New York usually have higher salaries to offset the high cost of living and taxes as well. So salaries are not normalized across the country. It really depends on the geographic region. But in the US, it's usually a six-figure, but also not. It really depends on the industry. So, sorry, I can't answer your question accurately. Definitely encourage you to look up online for anything specific you're looking for. Okay, moving on to the next question. Are there any principles of product or project management that can be applied outside its domain? Maybe in real life. Oh, I love this question. Uh, so I'll go back to this slide here where I have the core competencies. So core skills here, I don't see how that is not useful in real life. I can give you a personal example. So I have my guitar is a big hobby of mine, and it's something I pursue in my free time. And to be able to be a product manager and be good at it, and have a social life, and also have time for hobbies, it's a huge time management thing. And so definitely you need to be able to manage yourself first before you can manage projects or products, right? So that I would say is the number one thing you need to focus on, and which is helpful as well in your personal life. Yeah, everything on the screen here, I don't see how that's not useful in real life. Hopefully that answers your question. Hold on. Okay. I have one of those salary questions, so I'm going to skip that. How do you plan the contingency when considering the product management. I'm not sure if I understand the question, but considering the product management. So I'm assuming you're referring to the user requirements because that's what product is focused on. So contingency as in what needs to be built now versus later, I'm assuming. So that comes into the prioritization framework for any product management. So I would always have a list of things that I would want the team to work on first. And then I would also have a backlog of items that I want to get back to once the top priorities are finished. So that's more like a contingency. You always have a flow of requirements. And that's only possible if you're continuously talking to customers and understanding their pain points and what do they actually want from the product. Okay, so the next question is, what was the reason to do masters in information management? Like, how did you survey yourself to choose a specific field? Very interesting. I think somebody looked at my LinkedIn and figured out what degree I did at Syracuse. So information management is a really broad area to refer to. So I kind of, hold on, let me gather my thoughts on this. How did you survey yourself to choose a specific field? Okay. So like you would do with any decision, you would do a lot of research. So I researched the majors that I wanted to, that looked relevant to what I wanted to do. And Syracuse was one of the things that came up, and it was actually in my dream category. So they have a really good program on data science and business analytics and a little bit of management. So it was a perfect mix for me to be able to get into product management, which was always a goal from the start for me. So I kind of vetted out different options and also geographic regions. You need to make sure you're closer to hubs so that your university can easily get you in front of recruiters for those kind of roles. So New York is a great place to be. So I would do that similarly if I was in India. Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi, Gurgaon are all the big hubs. So I would try to find a college that's nearby and has a good curriculum. I don't know if that answers the question. If I'm totally off, but let me know in the follow-up if that's not something you want to hear. Okay. Suppose you have a better plan than the project leader. How should you try to convince them if they're not willing to change their plan? Very good question. This is better plan. So bring data, and nobody can reject data. So if you know for something is better, get data behind it. Why is it better? If you can't get the data, try to, and if it's something of your gut feeling, I don't think that's going to work out for you. Because usually product managers have data that support their decisions. So if you want to counter them, you need to be able to have data that supports your proposal. So definitely look at data. Maybe it's the way something is carried out, or if it's a feature. You want to look at other companies of how they did that and why it was a success for them. That could be one data point that you can show. It's an example. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question. Suppose you have, already covered that. What is your strategy for prioritizing personal and project commitments? I'm not sure if you mean personal life or individual tasks as part of the work, but I'll cover both just to be sure. So personal tasks as part of the work, what is your strategy? So my strategy is I put everything on my calendar. So that helps me manage my time. And that also helps me block out time so that nobody else takes that time for a meeting or something else. Because otherwise, if you keep your calendars open, everyone's going to send a meeting invite and you won't ever have time to work on anything. So that's one thing I do, and also making sure your manager or your supervisor knows what you're working on so that don't put more work on you. So definitely visibility is one thing, and just time management is one thing. Um, I guess that kind of covers both. So I'll move on to the next question. Best thing about being a product manager, it's definitely being able being able to work on different things. Personally speaking, I love to work on design stuff. So every chance I get to design something or do a design brainstorm with anybody, I'm all up for that. Because I am very everyone's creative, but I like to dabble into designing something, whether it's a user interface or could be a workflow or anything. So that's the best thing is I would say to be able to work on different things. Any skills required for manager? That is a very broad question. I am not sure how to answer that. Um, I guess I'll point you to the core skills that I have on my screen here. For any managerial role, you definitely need a lot of soft skills as well as technical skills. How do you decide which projects to take on? As a professional, I don't think you have the choice, to be honest, because you are working for a company towards a vision. So it is your responsibility, and you should be happy to take any projects that come your way. So I would look at it as an opportunity and learning something new. Um, there are some industries where you have that option to decide which projects you want to take on because it caters more to your skill set. So depending on the industry, you can have a say in that. But I haven't seen that personally in my career. Um, can you describe a scenario as a product manager where you failed and what did you learn from it? Hmm. I should be able to know this because I have had a lot of obviously failures because that's how you learn. I am not able to remember something right now, but so I'll have to skip. I'm sorry. As your experience, what all is required for a product to be successful in the market? Required for a product. Okay, so how basically the question is how do you know if a product will be or is successful in the market? So that's where there's something called product market fit. So especially in a startup when you're building a new product, or as a part of a large company for building a new product, the first thing that we do is find the pain points and making sure that your product is aligned with those and there's a fit with the market. So that's what product market fit is called. And how you validate the need is by building an MVP. MVP is minimal viable product. So it's more like a prototype of something you want to build in the future as a product. So you build the first version of it, which is called MVP, and you release it and test it out with a small group of users or customers. And once it's validated, you want to get more feedback from them and improve the product further based on that feedback. So that's how you make sure a product is a fit and is successful. There's a lot of research, making sure the needs, making sure you know the needs, and validating them with feedback and trials with an MVP. So all data is always the answer. So as for your experience, what all is required for? Oh, sorry, I already covered that. What are some of the do's that one should be aiming for as a fresher aspiring to be a product manager in the future part of this career? Um, as a fresher, I always recommend this, and I don't see a lot of students doing this early on in their career, is reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out to leadership teams, ask them out for lunch or coffee, pick their brains by asking them good questions, prepare good questions, ask them what is challenging about their job, and it could be specifically for the company and the projects and products they work on. Pick their brains, get to know their learnings, learn from others. Um, That's the best thing you can do as a fresher, is just be a sponge, and consume more information, as much as information as you can learn more, basically. And we already covered the certifications and other things that you can do. So that's also something you should be looking into. Okay, next question. How many years of experience it takes you to be a professional product or project manager? It really depends. I would say typically average be 3 to 5 years, maybe. Um, that's only, hold on, let me add a constraint with that. That's only for product, let me divide those. So product, I always recommend people working at startups, and this is based on my current experience, because you get to learn a lot and you get a lot of responsibility that you would not get in a big company for sure. So if you want product management, start out with a big company, but then switch to a startup, so you have the professional skills built from your first job, and then you move on to taking more responsibilities in your second job. So that's what I would recommend for a product person. So that way you get to build a product from the inception point. And the caution there is, if you are considering a startup, you should make sure you do a lot of research on the startup, because you don't want to join something that does not have a good chance of surviving. So research the investors, research the leadership team, because that's really important. They set the culture of the company. And if the culture is not a right fit for you, definitely don't recommend a startup. Um, so just to do that research for yourself. And for the project management, I don't think there's anything. There's obviously benefits and cons of joining a startup as well for that. You get a lot of projects to work on in a startup. In a big company, you have a broader experience, uh, different kinds of projects, and there will always be projects for you to work on, because big company is usually thriving, has business coming in all the time. So definitely recommend big companies for project management roles. And like I said, the certifications is a great thing you can use to slingshot and get a senior role for that. The PMP is definitely something, if you have, you can easily make the jump quicker than otherwise. Um, what's been expected from a product and project manager, the qualities, traits, and characteristics. I would point you to the slide here again. The core skills are what you require um, to be a good manager for both product and project. Um, what is your advice for choosing companies during the placements? Good question. Not a lot of people think about this, and I definitely did not as well when I was a student, and I wish I did. Um, advice for choosing companies. So I would say first understand where you see yourself, do some introspection, and figure out if you are want to be in the technical field for a long time, or if you want to at some point get into managerial role. Because I don't think one or the other is better. I think it's about what you want to do. So if you see yourself having any of the skills or want to build any of those things, look for a fit that works for you from the options that you have. Um, maybe you want to start with a product-based company if you really want to be in product. But it's a hard question to answer. It really depends, because I've seen people jump all over the place, moving from a services industry to a product-based industry. I would just say look for culture is what I would recommend. You want to join an environment which is nurturing for you, which helps you develop skills, which has a kind of leadership that is patient and nurtures your development and are around to listen to you and mentor you. So I would any day recommend choosing a team or a company. So every company has a lot of teams and they all have different cultures within teams. So I would recommend asking a lot of culture questions when you go for interviews for yourselves to be able to make that decision. If you like the hiring manager, if you like the boss that you are meeting in person, making sure that it's something who you will want to work with, because your first boss, first supervisor is really instrumental to your career growth. So that's what I would recommend.